old days for a while. Prior to Travis's employment with the organization. When I would resolve issues with Dad. Remember when I taught you how to change the belt on the old Ford? His grizzled face softened with a rare smile. You couldn't have been more than 12. I nodded as the recollection came back to me. You let me do the whole job while you supervised. Told me I had the steadiest hands you'd ever seen on a kid. Never seen anyone take to plumbing like you did, Alex. Natural talent. He looked at the truck instead of me while he sipped his beer slowly. This business, it wouldn't be what it is without you. It made me feel valued for a time. Like I seldom ever did anymore, I felt a connection to him. Before returning inside, he gave me a shoulder clap, leading me to ponder why those epiphanies had become so infrequent. When it really mattered, why couldn't he see my worth? In front of Travis, in compensation, in business decisions? I looked into my alternatives for weeks. Locating the best offers, organizing all the paperwork, and striking a balance between cargo capacity and fuel efficiency. I even made financial arrangements with our long-standing bank. For the following 10 years, this truck would serve as my mobile office. I wanted to do it correctly. Dad invited all of us to dinner that Sunday. Travis brought Jessica, his fiancée, who had just gotten engaged after only 8 months of dating. Mom prepared a feast. Dad looked unusually happy. When dessert was finished, he got up and yelled for everyone to pay attention. My heart soared. Perhaps, I reasoned, he would finally recognize my efforts. Perhaps even make public the collaboration we had discussed. Rather, he produced a set of keys that were fastened to a silver keychain bearing the business's emblem. He gave them to Travis with the broadest smile I'd seen in a long time. To help you start your new life, son. The new company truck is yours. I had them add all the upgrades you wanted. Consider it an engagement present from your mother and me. The ensuing quiet seemed to last forever. Jessica clapped her hands with joy as Travis smiled smugly. My emotions went unnoticed by them. While averting my gaze, my mother busied herself cleaning plates. At last, I was able to speak, but my voice was constricted. Dad, we discussed that truck for the service calls I handle. Travis doesn't even do emergency work. Dad dismissed it with a wave. You can keep using your current truck for a while longer. Travis needs to project a professional image now that he'll be taking over more client relationships. Besides, you know how to keep that old one running. You've always been good with repairs. Without even feigning gratitude, I watched Travis dangle the keys while discussing how he may personalize the paint job. His newest hobby was the truck that should have been mine, the one I required for my real job. Something eventually snapped inside me on the way home in my squeaky old pickup. It was more than just the car. It was neglected, underappreciated, and taken for granted for around 15 years. It was the knowledge that Travis would always be the preferred son and I would always be the dependable workhorse, regardless of what I contributed. I had trouble sleeping that night. I looked through job postings, something I had never given much thought to before. I gave Jack, a former coworker who had gone to work for a rival company, a call to inquire about their business. I was astonished by his response. Alex, you could write your own ticket anywhere in the county with your abilities and connections with clients. What, really, has kept you at your dad's house for so long? For the first time, I understood that my own mistreatment had been made possible by what I had assumed to be loyalty. I had forgotten my own value since I had been so accustomed to being underappreciated. Jack stated that his business required a skilled expert to oversee their commercial branch. Precisely the chance that my father's business had refused me. I painstakingly documented everything I handled throughout the course of the following week. Comprehensive guidelines for our systems, customer preferences, maintenance plans, supplier connections, and emergency procedures. I included remarks about each significant client to the customer database. I refused to become like them by undermining the company. However, I also didn't want to give them a reason to phone me after I left. When I got to work early the next Monday, I put an envelope on my father's desk. Casually late as usual, he came an hour later. His look changed from bewilderment to incredulity as he opened the envelope. 2 weeks' notice? Alex, have you got a joke? He leaned back in his chair and inquired. I calmly and professionally expressed my choice. I only touched on the vehicle incident in passing, preferring to talk about the partnership's repeated unmet promises and my need for professional development. Brighton Plumbing Services was the company I had accepted a position with. Dad sneered. You'll be back in a week. What we provide you here is unmatched by them. Isn't this just a tirade over the truck? He didn't even bother to inquire about my wages. He might have understood that I would be earning almost 40% more, with benefits, and that I would have a clear route to partnership in just 2 years. The company was instantly inundated with the news. Instead of his typical smug expression, Travis's face flushed with dread as he cornered me in the supply room. He growled, "You can't just walk away. Who will be in charge of the West Side contracts? Or the upkeep of the hospital? Or the calls for emergencies?" His self-assured exterior momentarily broke down. He lowered his voice to a whisper. "Dad has been preparing me to assume leadership in the future, but half of what you do is unknown to me. I didn't bother to become familiar with the systems. This is not what I'm ready for." I was shocked to hear the admission of inadequacy. However, it was no longer my issue. He had been content to claim credit for years while I completed the work. I answered, "I'm sure you'll figure it out. You have a nice new truck to drive around in, after all." Unexpectedly, those 2 weeks were freeing. As many of my duties as I could, I taught others. I presented their new technicians to important clients. I painstakingly recorded everything in a 3-ring binder with the big marker label Essential Operations. I put the binder, my business phone, my credit card, and the building's keys on my father's desk on my last day. Dad hardly noticed that I was gone. He remained certain that I would return in a matter of days. Mom contacted me that night with tears in her eyes, pleading with me to think again. She stated, "Family businesses have ups and downs. But we must remain united." I politely mentioned that despite always being underappreciated, I had remained loyal to them for 15 years. This was not a rash choice. It was past due by 15 years. It was an eye-opening first month at Brighton. I was referred to as the best plumber in the county, by my new boss Kevin, to both clients and employees. In addition to being heard, my recommendations were put into practice. When I suggested a more effective method for scheduling business maintenance, Kevin gave me the tools to implement it and urged me to make it a company-wide system. Then my first big test arrived. For months, Brighton has unsuccessfully bid on the Lakeside Corporate Park contract. I knew I had important inside information when Kevin said they were trying one last time. For years, Wilson Family Plumbing had provided building maintenance, and I was fully aware of their priorities and the problems they had faced. Knowing that, I could almost assure Brighton of winning the contract. However, it felt wrong to use such information. A breach of confidentiality for clients. Even though, in theory, I hadn't signed anything that would have stopped it. I thought about my possibilities through a restless night. I got everything from Brighton that my family business couldn't: show respect, just compensation. The chance. I wanted to demonstrate my worth. But not at the expense of my morals. I entered Kevin's office the following morning and gave him the following explanation. Although I was unable to provide precise information regarding Lakeside systems, with my knowledge of comparable properties, I might assist Brighton in developing a more robust general proposition. Kevin looked at me for a while. He finally remarked, "You know, most guys would have just used whatever advantage they had. Alex, I hired you precisely because of your integrity. Despite this, we were able to secure the contract based on our bid rather than insider knowledge. More than any simple win could have, that moment solidified my position at Brighton. Most unexpectedly, I completed my assignment within a fair time frame. Travis had messed up a simple job, therefore there would be no more midnight calls. No more working on the weekends since Dad had made unrealistic deadline promises without first talking to me. I started hiking on Saturdays, got back in touch with old pals, and even started dating someone who wasn't worn out by my frequent work emergencies. The consequences at Wilson Family Plumbing, meanwhile, were immediate and serious. Their Yelp rating fell from 4.8 to 3.2 stars in only 2 weeks. When they found out I had left, customers who had expressly asked for me were incensed. Missed meetings and duplicate bookings resulted from the breakdown of the intricate scheduling system I had developed, which no one else fully understood. By week 3, the texts began to come in. From Travis first. "How can I view the maintenance records for the hospital?" Next, from Dad. "Where did you save the Peterson job warranty details?" I just replied with succinct, business-like instructions for the paperwork I had left behind. When Travis tried to manage the quarterly maintenance at Riverside Medical Center, our biggest commercial client, a serious situation arose. A storage area flooded as a result of his failure to close a major valve. Their contract was immediately terminated by the hospital, resulting in an annual loss of $180,000. 2 seasoned technicians left that same week, complaining about the unorganized schedule and a lack of direction. One of those techs, Tom, who is currently employed by a rival company, told me what transpired after that. After having a total breakdown at the office, Travis screamed that he was being set up to fail and threw tools across the workshop. He said that his father had thrown him into the deep end without the necessary training and had expected him to take on my responsibilities right away without ever giving him the chance to learn.